Okay, thank you, Doctor. Please begin.
Thank you very much. Thanks. It's great to be here. Thank you for everyone for coming. My name is Daniel Hooper. I'm an associate professor at Tokyo Kasei University. So I'm not very interesting, so I'm just going to jump into it. If anyone wants to talk at the end, please let's jump into a breakout room and nerd out together. So today I'm going to be talking about autonomy supportive teaching by using what I've kind of termed perspective alignment tools, aligning a classroom more from a teacher alignment perspective to a student or a team alignment perspective. So let's jump in. So first, I'm going to give some theoretical underpinnings for my approach or like the tools I'm going to introduce here. Then I'm going to jump in to introduce two tools. The first one is action logging. This is kind of feedback forms for students. And then near-peer role modeling. Okay, so first, theory. Theory, dry academic stuff. I will try to make it not very dry as much as possible. So the first guiding principle to what I'm going to be talking about today comes from actually more of a sociological perspective. Eisler talked about the difference between domination or partnership. So domination is kind of your carrot and stick or like dictatorial, authoritarian methods of leadership. And this could be even within like a family, like, you know, the domineering parent, etc. It could be within business, the like very strictly top down, rule by threat, basically. Or, of course, in education, we have like teacher is God syndrome, where the teacher demands complete compliance from their students. The opposite is what Eisler terms partnership. So as you can imagine, this is a more egalitarian, democratic, it's based partly on Carl Rogers, I have at the bottom here, like unconditional positive regard, treating our students in a positive way as co-learners. And Tim Murphy, he talks about this concept of well-becoming. So we all have heard maybe the word well-being, right? So Tim Murphy uses well-becoming to talk about actions we can take to foster well-being. Okay, so this is an ongoing process. So the opposite, well, we kind of talked about it, like the wonderful plenary keynote we just had, talking about what we see in many schools, which is the factory model of education, or what Paulo Freire terms the banking model. Now, the banking model is we are hammering knowledge into our students' heads, and they are, in essence, deficient. They are empty vessels that we need to fill. So we're basically denying our students power and agency and maybe kind of rights in a way, autonomy. So Freire, he challenged this and he came up with something called like dialogic pedagogy. So teaching, educating as a dialogue between learner and teacher. And the teacher is always learning and the learner can also be teaching. So one kind of more concrete way that this has been promoted is through John Marshall Reeve. He's an expert in like self-determination theory, autonomy-supportive teaching. And he gave several different ways that teachers can teach in a more autonomy-supportive way. So the first one is taking the student's perspective, actively seeking out student feedback on what is being taught, how it is being taught, when it is being taught, why it is being taught, all of these things. So the students really become a resource or a source of knowledge. Also, providing explanational rationales. So rather than just giving students an activity and saying, do it because I said so, we show our students respect and we explain our rationale behind the activity and how it can benefit them. This makes them more invested or more empowered within the classroom. Acknowledging negative feelings. So our lives are a tapestry. The classroom is one tiny thread within that tapestry. So we don't know what is going on in our students' lives outside of the classroom. I've had students talk to me about, oh, my parent had a cancer diagnosis or something like that. But if we just take the classroom as like a bubble, we miss out all of these different things. And for that reason, rather than trying to suppress or cut out negative feeling in our classrooms, we need to acknowledge it. And we need to kind of talk to them like people, basically, right? That's kind of a message for today. They're people, everyone, our students, right? So, and then finally, BPN. BPN is basic psychological needs. Basic psychological needs satisfying learning activities. And I'm going to explain that now. So basic psychological needs is a sub-theory within self-determination theory. It's kind of one of the leading motivation, well-being theories in mainstream psychology. Ryan and DC, they argue that motivation, intrinsic motivation and well-being are governed by the satisfaction or the frustration of three key basic psychological needs. Autonomy, so our ability to choose. Competence, our ability to feel that like success is possible. And relatedness, so this is kind of social connection, warm social connection with people around us. Caring for others and feeling cared for. So not just within language learning, but within sports coaching, business, like name your field. This theory has been consistently kind of supported throughout the last, like, wow, almost 40 years of research. This is a very solid idea. So if we can have activities that satisfy these three basic psychological needs, our students are going to feel better, conceivably, have more intrinsic motivation, and grow. So one way we can do this is through action logging. So what is an action log? An action log is a physical, so it could be a piece of paper, or a digital. I used Google Forms in the past, or Google Docs as well. A physical or digital feedback form, which is done at the end of every class or at the end of every week. Here's an example that I use. So students will write the date, their target, not my target, their target for English in the class. Do they want to do all English, 100%? Are they happy with 80% English? Then at the end of class, they write, did they achieve their goal or not? Next, they write which activities we did in today's lesson. So for example, it could be number 1 was a warm-up game, number 2 was textbook, number 3 was a discussion practice, number 4 was presentation practice. And then they assess these activities based on how interesting, difficult, or useful they were. There's also a space for comments about class, what they learned in class. And again, this is not what I taught, this is what they learned, because it's often very different. And then finally, what they want to do better next time. The content of the action logs evolves based on student feedback. So for example, at the bottom here, we have a section for new vocabulary. This came from a student suggestion. So they are also, not only is this form facilitating agency, it's also a representation of agency, because they can see it changed based on their decisions. So when I became an English teacher in university first, I moved from Eikaiwa Gakko to Kanda University. And I was having trouble like working out what the expectations were from my students because the Eikaiwa classroom was quite different. So I used action logs to negotiate certain like points of difference that I was experiencing. So for example, I'm a fluffy, world English is a lingua franca. I hate English only policies. I'm anti-native speakerism. That's kind of my research identity. And obviously that affects my teaching. But I got some pushback from students because lots of them came to Kanda seeking an English only policy. So we used action logs, these feedback forms, as kind of a written dialogue exchange between us. And we collaboratively worked out a compromise where both of us, like my teacher identity and their needs as students, were both satisfied. And as a result, we created this kind of co-constructed learning environment. So it was very useful. Action logs, I kind of already talked about this a little, but there is a cycle with action logs. They will evolve based on student feedback. So for example, teachers will introduce and adapt to action logs. This gives students agency, decision-making power, or basic psychological need of autonomy. They can make choices. Then we get the student feedback. The students and the teachers can then reflect on this and develop their understanding and perspective even more. This causes the classroom and even the action log itself to evolve, and then the cycle starts again. So it's this constant evolution because needs are not static, needs evolve. So the means with which to collect that data also needs to evolve. So this is from my Zemi student. He is now an elementary school teacher, but he did his teaching practicum in junior high, high school, and in elementary school. And he used action logs, bilingual action logs, in junior high school and also in elementary school. So we're able to simplify them, for example, using visualizations like this. And as a teacher, he said this helped him to feel more comfortable. And I feel the same. Not only does this benefit the students, this also benefits the teacher. Because if I think I'm teaching in a way that is not satisfying my students, I feel stressed. So we have kind of a roadmap. Where do we need to go? How do we need to get there? So the students are really helping us as well. The next kind of technique concept that I use is near peer role modeling. And actually, we're very lucky. Jason Walters, our host, he wrote a fantastic paper on near peer role modeling, Walters 2020, called Senpai. I really recommend it. And this really influenced my growing understanding of this concept. So first of all, what's a near peer role model? A near peer role model is someone we can respect or learn from, look up to, who might be near to us in some way. So like similar age, ethnicity, gender, interests, past or present experiences, and also in proximity and in frequency of social contact. This is kind of the standard Murphy and Arau, very accepted definition of what a near peer role model is. The example I always use is like Messi, the soccer player, right? I can't hope to be like Messi. It's not gonna happen. As much as I would love it, it's very unlikely. However, if I look at my senpai in club activities, I can derive potentially more motivation or more self-efficacy from watching them than watching someone who is like conceptually far. So benefits of near-peer role models, first of all, is what Muir calls myth busting. So in our minds, we construct many kind of subjective truths. So for example, oh, he's good at English because he did study abroad. He's good at English because he's smart. She's good at English because da 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 da. But near-peer role modeling kind of busts many of these myths. By seeing a near-peer role model and speaking to them about their experiences, we can realize, oh, this person studied for 4 hours a day for 3 years. Ah, this person failed many, many times in the past. It kind of takes away from these stereotypical, simplistic impressions of successful language learners. It also increases self-efficacy. So Bandura is probably the leading researcher in general psychology on efficacy, self-efficacy. He talked about the concept of vicarious experience. So vicarious experience means seeing someone similar to ourselves succeed based on what he called effortful coping behavior. Not messy, not talent, not circumstance, but effort, grit. And he said that if we see people succeed, people similar to us, succeed through grit and determination and perseverance, we too feel success is possible for us. Also, this is my favorite, challenging dominant ideologies. Native だから英語がペラペラじゃんみたいな or like,彼はhe did study abroad, so he's good at English. Native の先生が必要. We need a native teacher. This challenges those, I think, destructive ideological positions, or at least challenges them. When you see a Japanese teacher who's a fluent English speaker, we think, maybe a native teacher isn't better. Maybe I can achieve a high level of fluency. So a paper which just came out that I wrote with 2 colleagues also found that beyond like language growth, linguistic proficiency development, from near-peer role model interactions, students also gained learning strategies. So they were able to kind of pool their resources. From their experiences, near-peer role models could tell other students, oh, I used spaced repetition, it was really good. Oh, when I get nervous before a test, I did this. So they gained, rather than just having one perspective, i.e. the teacher, they gained multiple tools and perspectives that they could use. Interpersonal skills as well. They learned how to interact better through near-peer role model activities, interacting with like senpai, or the opposite way, interacting with like less experienced learners, guiding people. And this helped them develop leadership skills. Also, a sense of belonging. Rather than being framed as a non-native speaker, i.e. not native, i.e. not good enough implicitly, right? This negative ideological framing, they instead saw themselves as a legitimate member of an international community of English users. So you can see the power switch there. Did it destroy it completely? Of course not. Native speakerism is ingrained. But did it challenge it? We had perspectives that suggested that, yes. Also in self-access language learning, I had some good, this is from my doctoral research. So again, you can see these quotes suggest this is based on effort. She speaks fluently. because she tried hard, she is a near peer role model. Because she tried hard, yeah, she goes to the yellow sofa. This is kind of a free conversation area every day. Because even though she's never studied abroad, she speaks so fluently. Effortful coping behavior. Also, from a learning community, one student talked about the learning community founder, who was a Japanese student, and she thought, this much by one's own efforts, you can build so this much confidence. And I felt I could do it. Competence. This is our basic psychological need. Because of that, I got more and more into the learning community, LC. And eventually, this student became a future leader of that community. So we can translate this into classroom practice in many ways. Mixed classes. Tim Murphy and I mixed two classes and had students teach each other different things. Video interventions. So recording videos or interviews with near-peer role models and showing them to your first-year students. Group work is the simplest way, giving people ample opportunities for group or pair work so they can inspire each other. Class newsletters, sharing the comments from your action logs in newsletters can serve to inspire members of a class. And most importantly, I think, language learning histories. Language learning histories, I have students write them, their struggles, their successes, and share them together with their students. This shows effort, like the mistakes they made, the failures they had, what they had to overcome. So I always say, showing students how the sausage is made, showing them all the dirty, all the painful memories that, allowed them to experience success.
Sorry, Dr. Chipper, you have a couple minutes left.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, but near-peer role modeling is not a magic bullet. We found that students, the positive effects of near-peer role modeling were offset by social comparison. So it's important to show students the process, all of the mistakes, all of the struggles, rather than just the result. Okay, that's it. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to share, if possible, 2 documents with you. Actually, 3 documents, if possible. 2 of them are near-peer role modeling papers that I published recently. They are both open access. And also, if possible, this is coming out. This is my book, which is coming out in 2 days. And lots of the concepts which I'm talking about here are, oh, sorry, I just sent it as a direct message. Sorry, send that again. It's coming out in the next 2 days. It's very cheap. It's not like a Springer book where you have to remortgage your house. It's about 4,000 yen. So if you have any research budget left, please consider picking up a copy. And I'd love to nerd out with anyone who has any questions. We got like 1 minute, if anyone